Good morning. I'm walking a mile with Fabian Minnema. Good morning, Fabian. How you doing?
I'm well, Joe. Thanks a lot for asking me to do this. I've been a fan of this segment of your show since you started doing it at CFTR, and I'm really excited to be part of it.
Well, thanks very much. I hope you're a fan by the time we finish yours.
Well, the more you learn about yourself, you're supposed to love yourself more, so that's good.
Well, I like that sentiment for sure. I had to listen to your most recent releases, and I like them a lot. And you also sent me a bit of a rough track, just a phone recording of a new song that you thought might fit the genre of the show that I'm doing. So many roads, which is folk, blues, and country. And maybe I'll just start by asking, like if your CDs were in a CD bin in a record store, where would they be? What what classification do you think you'd find them in?
I think that's a great question, Joe. I struggle with that every time I fill a submission out to apply for a festival, or someone asks me about a show and they want to know what's your genre. It's really hard to answer, but I know it's rock and roll, but I think it fits anywhere from Stevie Ray Vaughan to Wilco. I think there's elements of all that stuff. It's all the influences of the music that I listened to growing up. Obviously, for most musicians, that's how it is. But I feel like I was very lucky, very fortunate to have my parents really be huge music fans and have a massive record collection of everything under the sun. And they're both European, so we had a lot of flavors from Holland that were in the collection, and artists that were popular in Holland that might not have been so popular in Canada. And I absorbed all that stuff, and that includes the big guys like Van Morrison in the band. Dad was a huge Rod Stewart fan. Mom and Dad loved Little Richard, Fats Domino, and every time that stuff would come on, they'd start dancing in the living room, doing jive dancing and stuff. So the influences come, honestly, it's the one thing in my life I've never really judged is music in any regard. I listen to everything. I love it all. And if I feel like there's an influence it's all a homage and it's all a compliment as far as I'm concerned. Whenever I use something that I feel might be too close to the real thing, it's a compliment that I'm trying to pay. So I would say, I like to say the blues shelf, but I think rock and roll is probably a better blanket to cover it with, just so that it covers all the bases. I think there's some elements of country stuff, some Americana. There's a little bit of jazz in some of the stuff, especially the newer stuff I'm working on now. As you become a better musician, you try different things. You don't try to go into a whole new genre, but you try to fish in a few new fans from different genres to come along for the ride, which is sort of the point now. But I would say somewhere in the blues to rock and roll shelf area, if that answers the question.
Yeah, no, I think it does. I mean, it's more difficult today than maybe ever, right? Because it's not like it used to be, where AM radio and FM radio, they had their formats that they stuck to, and as a listener, we were shaped by whatever radio station we listened to, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's very true, and it is hard. Making music is one thing; selling it and getting people to hear it is entirely another thing. And a lot of people say, "Well, the music industry is dead because the internet's killed it." I mean, you're giving your music away for free, and that's sort of true, except for you've got an audience of 33 billion people. So in essence, it's basically like you can tour the entire planet from your desktop computer, essentially, and find ways to get in and out on people's interests on the internet. And I don't think the music industry is dead by any stretch. I do feel like touring is still a viable way to go, and selling CDs, people like that tactile feeling in their hands.
Yeah, for sure.
Industry, though, like Joe, like you played lots of shows too. It's a tough industry, and you want to play lots of shows. You want to play live a lot, and sometimes you got to take a little break financially to do that. And it's tough on a lot of people, but it is out there. The money is out there. The industry is out there. It's just trying to learn, especially at an older age like myself, trying to figure out the internet and social media and what have you, and not towing the wrong line. I mean, you can waste a lot of time trying to get people that are 25 years old to listen to your music, when really, if it's designed for people that are 40 to 50 or what have you, then you should be targeting that audience. And you can learn how to do that online, and it does work. It's hard work though, but it does work somewhat. And case in point, you came along and bought a bunch of my songs yesterday, and I can't I can't thank you enough. I mean, that's direct money in our pocket that keeps us going in life, not just in music, but it pays our bills. And thanks for that, Joe. I really
Yeah,
like to see
yeah.
that.
No, I
You
mean,
get the alert that says, the band can't go cha-ching, you sold the song, and it's very exciting. It becomes the thing you chase. It's the thing you want. And I know people go, well, if you're not in it for the art side of it. No, I'm in it for the artistic side. I can't help but write music. But a guy needs to eat too, and so
well,
I'm
that's
just trying
right.
to blend all those things together and try to do all that at once.
Well, the best compliment anybody can give you is to buy your material.
No, there's nothing better. Nothing better.
So yeah, so no, it was well. I mean, for me, it's just a pleasure to be talking to somebody like you.
Well, I'm happy to be here too, Joe, and it's so nice to see such a huge supporter. And I know you're new to the province, and within a couple of years, and he was such a huge supporter of live music and local artists, and the radio show hosting. And you and Nancy are always attending shows, and it's just really, really nice to see. And it makes for a nice community. It makes things exciting. The last show we all did together, the Gordon Lightfoot show, was wonderful. I thought that was such a nice community of people. The whole evening was just an absolute blast, and I had such a good time. It just reminds me of how lucky we are in this small community to have good people in it like this.
Well, music brings people together in a really special way, right?
Yeah, it really does. People need to remember that. People who need to slow down and find songs to remind themselves that there's more to life than get up and go, and there's more to it. And music helps do that. Helps shape your calm moments as well as your active moments.
For sure.
Going to the gym or running or whatever you use music for. There's music for everyone.
So another sort of stimulus for comment, I guess, more than a question. But so I listened. I always, I'm a word guy. I start with the words. I love, of course, music. I can't help the music, just like you. But I'm a word guy, so I 90% of the time my songs will start with lyrics. And I listened to your lyrics, and I thought there was some really, really interesting turns of phrase and some compelling themes. But I wonder, is there a theme that links these most recent songs, these 7 songs?
The 7 that are on the Bandcamp and that are on social media that are available now are kind of disjointed in a way that they were recorded probably at one time all at once, but a couple of these versions are songs that I've recorded myself in the last year or two. So there's a little bit of there's not a real clear line. Like if I were to put these all on a record, it'd be really hard for me to decide which one would go where. Not just like normally hard, but extremely hard because there's so much behind the song that I know about. These songs all come from experience. I'm learning how to write about things I haven't experienced. But these ones generally come from just a really time in my life where things were just not going exactly how they, not that I even had a plan in place, just sort of weren't going how I wanted them to go day by day.
Yep.
So for me, misery and content always helps fuel lyric writing and music writing. I don't know what it is, but misery loves company, and I'm right in there with that stuff. So,
well,
it's the darndest thing. Like there's a bit of a dark overtone, but it's also it's supposed to resonate with people that have gone through the same things that I have, which there are many of. It'd be hard to put a line through them, but they're all me.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. No, absolutely. And I think there is a uniqueness to your vocals. But I want to get to that later, but it's just because of what you said. So would you say on the spectrum, let's call this a spectrum between journalist and fiction writer, as a musician, are you a journalist or are you a fiction writer?
Oh boy. Depends what song you're listening to. I've got a couple of tunes that I play that I always introduce as my political stand tunes, and that for sure is journalistic. I write a lot about things I find unfair, and usually it comes down, being in Saskatoon, usually comes down to poverty, and usually comes down to the how unfair it just all seems that people live across the street from my house behind the Loris bin, and it just doesn't sometimes make sense to me, but it does open my eyes to the reality of the world, I guess, and we do our part. We try to share what we have with as many people that need it, that come around. We live in an area where there's a lot of that homelessness and a lot of some sadness and some mental health, and you see all these things, and you get them all. You get all that information in your brain, and then you start to lay it out into words. And when I write songs in a journalistic style, it's definitely got everything to do with politicians money, poverty, and how to help people. Those are my main lines. When I write about selfish things that have happened to me, bad relationships or what have you, sort of the boo-hoo stuff, that stuff comes pretty naturally too when you go through situations that a lot of people have, and that, I would call that more of a fiction writing. Sure, it's something that's happened to me, but I always try to phrase it in a way that it's sort of not really me that it's happening to.
Okay,
it's
yeah.
a story about somebody else. So that in that regard, I kind of tend to write fiction.
Yep. It's such a good frame of reference, right, in your own writing. Like, what am I doing here? What is my message here? So I'm thinking of like the song "Spell," for example. I'm probably paraphrasing, but if I stand up like a man, never raise your hands again. What, like, and only, talk as far as you want to talk about.
That song "Spell" was written about a time when there was a young kid named Curtis Dagenet. I call him a kid. I just call people that are in trouble with the law kids. I don't know what that is. But he was probably well into his 30s, maybe even his 40s. But he was in trouble with the law, and he was running from the cops out by Spiritwood, Saskatchewan, and was hiding in a shed in a field. And they found him, so they went to go get him. He'd been in trouble with the law dozens and dozens of times around the area. But this time it went the wrong way. He ended up with a gun somehow, and he ended up shooting 2 RCMP officers. And it just was out of the history of the guy's crime sprees. This was never something that was sort of accountable that he would be doing. That the police weren't really too worried that would be an issue, but it cost a couple of lives. And so, following that story, looking at Curtis Dagenet's upbringing and stuff, I know he had a bit of a rough upbringing. And he was beaten pretty badly by his dad, and that's where that line comes from. If he stands up again, and he'll never raise his hand again. He's so frustrated from the upbringing he had. All that frustration came out, and he sort of acted out, obviously on the wrong people. But I think his, dream-wise, I think he probably would have loved to have just stood up to his dad and taken control of his life. I'm assuming what goes through a person's head at that moment, I don't know, but from the best that I can describe, that line comes from is a really sad story out of Saskatchewan about 12 years ago, 10 or 12 years ago.
That reminds me of, I love this line from Ani DeFranco. It was in a conversation, not in a song, but, do you judge a person by the worst decision they ever made?
Those are the quickest decisions made too. Those are the ones that people should be most. But I mean, there's also a line that, if there's a line that you've crossed that it's not even that it's a mental issue or that you've proven that you can cross that line, then there has to be definitely some, then you can't, there's no forgiveness. And I do have some songs that get a little harsh when it comes to that too, but there's a line that you just can't cross. And I think it's hard, it would be hard to write about, what actually goes through someone's mind. That's why it's sort of hard to be a songwriter sometimes, because if you haven't lived it, how can you really write about it? And I guess that's the magic of songwriting, is that you try to get people encapsulated in a story that you haven't even lived.
Yep. Another lyric that there's a number. We only have so much time because we're only walking a mile this morning, right? But from your song "This House," you never learned to work the hammer.
Yeah, that means focus. That just means getting to work on things. I have a lot of ADHD, and not medically determined by any stretch, but I definitely go along that line of hard to stay focused on a task, and it's been that way my whole life. And up until just the last few years, where I sort of just took a deep breath and said, okay, I need to make some decisions about what I am and who I am and what I do. So once you sort of had that real talk with yourself, it's easier to sort of let yourself focus on the thing that you've told yourself that you're supposed to be doing, which is, for me, releasing music, recording music, performing, producing, whatever I can get my hands on in any regard to music. And that's what I've decided to do. And it's just changed really my life because my focus is much better. But that's where that line comes from. I've never really learned to get down and focus. And I just use the word a hammer as hard work. And staying focused on tasks and stuff like that is hard work. It was hard in grade school. It was terrifying in high school. And through my adult life, it was fleeting as well. It was hard. So there were months, even years, where everything was where exactly we're supposed to be. But then you lose a little bit of focus. And that's
Sure.
It's hard
Yep.
to deal with sometimes, and that's where that line comes from.
The discipline, yeah, the discipline of
Yeah,
focusing.
discipline. Yeah.
Yeah. So you're a multi-instrumentalist. You play drums, you play guitar.
Yep.
You probably play bass, and
Yeah, I love playing bass.
yeah, and and I don't know. Has anybody ever said that your vocal is really powerful? Because
Well,
you have a really, really agile voice, and it's a very compelling one, and it comes through. I think, this is just my opinion for what that's worth, but I think there are some songs where it's more prevalent than in others. And
yeah.
I don't know if anybody has ever compared your vocals to Bryan Adams or not, but there's a couple of songs where I hear a Bryan Adams influence, and I hope that doesn't insult you.
Not at all. In fact, that Bryan Adams track, and I've been listening to it a lot since Tina Turner just passed away. They do a version of "It's Only Love," and oh my God, it's probably going to be one of my favorite songs all the way down the line, from the guitar tones to the drum and everything. They just did such a great job. That is not that's a compliment 100% of the time. I love Bryan Adams. I think he's a huge successful Canadian, and that just inspires me. That's not the first time I've heard Bryan Adams. I've heard a little bit of Tragically Hip sometimes, and a couple of other things. But yeah, vocally, I mean, I sing a lot, and it's probably the instrument I've practiced on the least. Like, I just don't really ever sit down and focus on the vocals. I just let it just sort of comes out. And usually it's on key, sometimes it's not, and sometimes we leave that. Sometimes we go, well, it's a little bit off, but let's kind of got a nice thing to it. So,
Gotta live with it.
It's hard. It'd be nice to have a vocal coach and to work on some actual.
I don't know about that. I mean, I think one of the things that I find most compelling about your vocals is that I really sense that you are telling me your truth.
Oh, yeah, I'm very genuine when it comes to that. In fact, I played music in high school with a fellow named J.B. Eckel. He moved to Los Angeles after high school and got a bunch of work with a bunch of really great bands, and they ended up producing records and ended up touring with War. Eric Burden and War, and he won a Grammy Award for production track on the album Supernatural with Rob Thomas and Carlos Santana. He won a Grammy Award.
Wow!
Really
Yeah. So there's an influence.
Of a couple of the tunes, and he sent me a message about my vocals and said, "Man, how do they not know that you sang like this? Like, whenever we played together, I didn't realize that you could sing like this." I don't know, man. I was singing, but.
Interesting.
So he was also very complimentary, and it's very nice to hear. It's good to hear input when you release music and somebody comes back and gives you a compliment. That's wonderful. It's one thing for someone to say, "Hey, it's really good." You like that?
Yeah.
When someone said, I really like this line, and you sing that really well. That's a really nice compliment.
Yeah, I mean, just from a musical point of view, I certainly didn't hear any pitch problems, and the agility was absolutely impressive. But overriding all of that for me was that this is somebody who's telling me what he believes, which I think is really important. Now, I want to talk about, because we're our mile is getting close to being done here, right? So, and it's amazing how quickly we walk these days, right? But there's a couple of things musically. A friend of mine says, everybody is an internal drummer, right? Every musician has this internal drummer going on.
Yeah.
But one of the things I noticed that seemed to be recurring in the 7 songs was that you like to change up the tempo and the rhythm, right?
Yeah, we like changes. We like dramatics, and also breakdowns and calmness during the middle of something. We like dynamic a lot.
Yeah, big time, and it's powerful. It's really powerful.
Yeah, we're really a live band that just happened to have the ability to build a studio and record our own stuff. Like, we love performing live, and that's where we really excelled. We felt like live we were probably one of the best bands going in Saskatoon.
Yeah.
For quite a few years, we were pretty proud of the work we were doing, and we just happened to be recording this stuff because we had some microphones and a space. We had rented a warehouse out on Garfield Street in the industrial area of 11th Street, and we still that space still runs today as the Garfield Sound Lab. It's been almost 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that's very cool. The other thing was I loved the trumpet. Oh my God. Yeah. Escape from Mexico. Man. That was like Barry Redford. I understand was that trumpet player.
Yeah, that was Barry, and we recorded that at Ross Nicofort's Cosmic Pad Studios when he was on the north end of town. And Barry brought his son with him, and his son was he was like 14 or 15 and was not interested in being with his dad playing music at all. He just had way better things to do. But by the end of that session, all three of us, Ross and Barry's son and myself, were blown away. We had never seen somebody work that hard to get notes out of an instrument like that. He kicked the heck out of that piece of music.
It's a great.
He kicked the heck. That solo on that is unreal.
Just
it's
wild.
so true to pick. He did such a great job. I'm so proud of that track. Actually, he really brought that track to life.
Yeah, uncommonly great. Really terrific. So listen, we have about a minute and a half, something like that. So tell me what's coming up. What are you doing? What's exciting in your future?
Right now, I'm still writing and recording my own stuff. I've got a couple of new songs that I'm working on right now. I'm trying to line up with a DJ to help me get some different sounds with the drums. I'm looking for a certain drum pattern, so we're going to work with a DJ on that tune coming out soon. And then I'm producing some music for Oxford's Hollow with my good friend Peter Aldridge. We actually run a small record label called Caswell Hill Records, and we produce music for bands. We help record them. We help engineer their tracks just so they have something they can pitch for either shows or online. Or if they want to get serious, they can record.
What's the name of the label again?
Sorry?
What's the name of the label again?
Caswell Hill Records.
Caswell Hill Records.
Yeah.
Okay.
And we're working extensively with Oxford's Hollow doing a full album, and it's great. That's a great band. They got great songs. Really reminiscent of the band and that 70s Southern folk rock, like really nice stuff.
Nice.
And we're also working with, we're going to start working with Shane Lazarowicz.
Yeah.
He's coming in with a bunch of songs we're going to go through and see what we can help him with. Also a great songwriter, political clout, really. His songs, they're serious business. So we're looking forward to that. And of course, I'm playing drums in Ray Elliott and the Pearl, the Janis Joplin project. And I play in the Great Fuss now, playing drums with Peter Aldridge. So I keep busy doing that, and I'm always practicing. And sometimes I have to, bust out the paintbrush and make a few bucks doing that. But I keep myself busy as best I can anyways.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Hey, I'm doing a Walk a Mile update with Fabian Minnema. This is the actual first ever Walk a Mile update, Fabian. How you doing?
I'm great, Joe. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you. I just wanted to touch base with you because I hear that you're opening for Ray Bonneville at the Basement on November the 2nd. That's
right, Thursday, November 2nd. I was a few months back, or probably about over a year ago now. I popped in to say hi to Don Griffiths at the Basement. He brought a show to town I was watching, and we were just chatting about stuff. And I said to Don, it would be great if I could get a few more opening spots. I just, what do I got to do? And he looked over at me, he had his arms crossed, and he said, "You got to hustle," he said to me. So from almost the moment on, I emailed him probably once a month for sure, sometimes twice a month. And he's always been so good to me. But he called, I sent him an email and he replied and says, "You know what, I do have an opening spot for you, and it's going to be Ray Bonneville." So he's right. If you hustle, you get what you get after.
Well, that's it. You got to knock on the doors, right? I mean, they don't come to you. You have to keep working at it.
It's true. It's a constant forward grind. You always have to be working. And now I use the word hustling quite a bit now. I use it as sort of a mantra. If I get feeling a little lazy or a little complacent with things, I'm like, hustle, get out there and get some business. So.
Right. So last time we talked, you were about to open for Tara Lightfoot. So how did that go?
That was a great show. We had a really great time. There was some chatter about possibly joining her on the rest of her Western Swing, but her band ended up getting picked up by Ariel Posen's band, so they were opening for Ariel, so that the opportunity for me to go with them faded, but she sure got a nice opening spot for Ariel all across Western Canada.
How cool.
It was a really fun show. She's a lovely, great artist, lovely girl. We just had so much fun
for
talking
sure.
Music and guitars.
Yeah, and you had a good crowd at the Capitol, I think, right?
I think it was pretty close to sold out. I would like to say it was sold out. I feel it was pretty close. Yeah, it was a great crowd. We did some great business. We met some great people, and it was really a good time.
So obviously you prepare a little differently for different people. So you mentioned to me that, it gives you a good reason for focusing on practicing and preparing. Mm-hmm. So what can people expect when they go to the show?
Well, I kind of have been debating whether I was going to play my electric guitar for the show, but Ray Bonneville uses electric guitar and harmonica, so I might just do a completely stripped down acoustic show.
Nice.
Which I don't think I've done that in over, I don't know, it's been years since I've done a completely acoustic show.
Oh, wow.
Of some of my songs. And all my songs, even though when they're recorded and they're filled up with all the parts, they sound big and dynamic and there's lots going on, but really, they really are, written on an acoustic guitar in my little studio space here, one little verse at a time and chorus at a time. little by little, I put the song together. So I'll just strip everything back and play just acoustic guitar. I'm going to be using a nice old Harmony Sovereign guitar.
Nice.
Maybe some 12 string and just keep it nice. I'll try to do some harmonica and have some fun. I'm really looking forward to it. Ray Bonneville's a great artist.
Oh man, he's great. Yeah, I'm going to be at that show for sure. So yeah. Looking forward to that. So how long a set are you preparing?
30 minutes I get.
30 minutes,
and Don was pretty adamant. You got 30 minutes from foot on the stage to foot off. So anything in between there is up to you, but you got 30 minutes and that's when you're coming off. I said, no problem.
Well, that's very cool. So November the 2nd, Fabian Minnema opening for Ray Bonneville. That's going to be a great show.
Yeah, that'll be great. I look forward to seeing everybody there. I mean, Ray Bonneville draws a lot of people. And if you don't know who Ray Bonneville is, people really should look him up.
Oh, yeah.
Essentially, he's got so much stuff going on in his sound. There's Creole and blues and country and rock. There's just so much going on. It's beautiful.
It's a rich mix. Yeah, it's a rich mix.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah,
and a great vocal too, right? Great vocal and great storyteller. Yeah. Well, listen, Fabian, thanks a lot for doing this.
Appreciate it, Joe. I really do. Thanks a lot for everything.
No problem. We'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.